Hello, everyone. We're going to pick up today back in Ruth chapter 2, and I'm just going to go through. I don't know if I'm going to be able to capture it all in one video here. If not, I'm just going to divide it up in two to go ahead and finish with Ruth today. And so Ruth is four chapters long. So we already went through one together. So today we've got chapters 2, 3, and 4. And again, just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. And the theme here is really one of relative redeemer. So just to really think about that word redeemer, and especially during this time period, because again, one, it is in its place in history. It's in the Old Testament. It's during this time of law, and also where it's placed even within the Old Testament, right here during this time of Judges, where we saw in chapter 17 through 21 of Judges just an accounting of what's not following the law, what it looks like to not follow the law, and then in here, to see the law being followed, and really in a very beautiful way. Because I don't know about you, but as I read this multiple times, I'm as we went through Leviticus together, and we went through Deuteronomy. We're just seeing the law when it's just kind of laid down without seeing it applied. In a sense, it just seems like another have to, which it is certainly that. And let's not forget that the law is to condemn. The law is to bring condemnation. Yet, fortunately, we are in an age of grace, and even with inside of that, it's living out grace. Grace is a mind blower, and I don't want to. If I'm not careful, I'll ramble, and I'm not even really prepared to talk about grace, except in view of how we see grace portrayed here with Boaz, with Ruth, and in just this beautiful story again in a context of law, and we even see the law being fulfilled, certain commandments being fulfilled in the book of Ruth, and in a way of just it's part of life, and it's part of life, and so even in these moments we get to see the law fulfilled as a beautiful thing, as a just as a way of life. So picking up in chapter 2, this is where Ruth meets Boaz. So when we went through chapter 1 together, we saw that there was this family of Elimelech. Naomi had been married to Elimelech, and she had these two sons, and they had left because of a famine. They had left, and rather than even going to their fellow brothers or another tribe of Israel, they went all the way out to the Moabites, into a land that wasn't part of their inheritance, or at least, better said, that had not been gathered as such as far as the inheritance. So they're with the Moabites. Her two sons marry two Moabites, Ruth being one of them, and so Elimelech dies, the two sons die, and now in the return, Naomi's coming back to back to Judah, and Ruth is coming back with her. So Ruth has gone through really a conversion. I mean, she's basically had said in chapter 1, she didn't want to leave her. So Ruth telling Naomi, wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me. So in chapter 2, it says, verse 1, there was a relative of Naomi's husband, a man of great wealth, of the family of Elimelech. His name was Boaz. The name Boaz means in him is strength. And there certainly is, and we'll see that as this accounting unfolds here. His name was Boaz. So Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him, in whose sight I may find favor. And she said to her, go, my daughter. Then she left and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. When you read this, really there's this is separate. It's because we get this accounting of okay, there's this guy Boaz, and so that's just kind of a statement, and then right beside that in verse 2, please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him in whose sight I may find favor. um, so there's this, Ruth is just going to glean. She's just going to glean these fields, and right here we see one of these laws being fulfilled and just played out in everyday life. And it's referencing Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy chapter 24, verses 19 through 22. And in Deuteronomy 24, verse 19, this is what it says: When you reap your harvest in your field, and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive trees, you shall not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not glean it afterward. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore, I command you to do this thing. So Ruth, again, they come. It's the time of barley harvest. She she's going out to glean the fields, basically, of what's left over. And so she's gleaning, and it says, then she left and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, the Lord bless you. Here's Ruth, happens to be in Boaz's field, gleaning, fulfilling this command given to the Jewish people of allowing the strangers and fatherless and widows to take what's left over. And then here comes Boaz, and this neat interaction where he's basically speaking to those who work for him, his employees, if you will. And he says to them, the Lord be with you. And they are responding back to him, the Lord bless you. So this sweet relationship even between him and his employees. And then so as he's there, he says to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, hey, whose young woman is this? So he's looking at Ruth, who is this? So the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered and says, it is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. And she said, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and has continued from morning until now, though she rested a little in the house. So he finds her working. He finds her going after the reapers and as a stranger, and also as a widow, and taking of what's left over. And then Boaz has this interaction with Ruth in verse 8, and he says, you will listen, my daughter, will you not? Do not go to glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close by my young women. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Have I not commanded the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels, and drink from what the young men have drawn. So she fell on her face, bowed to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? And Boaz answered and said to her, it has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother in the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. The Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. This is really this last blessing here. This showing favor to a Gentile. Again, this is speaking to Christ, right? This is speaking to that redemption. And so right here, here's this Gentile, and she's even blown away by it. She knows that she's a stranger, yet here's this man showing her great favor. Just telling her, hey, hang with my young women, and when you're thirsty, go to my vessels and drink. And then even to the extent of now that he's blessing her, the Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. And then she says to him, let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me, and have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. And even goes on now, at mealtime. So they're even eating together. She's eating among the servants of Boaz and with Boaz himself, and he's telling her, dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she's sitting beside the reapers. And then when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Also let grain from the bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it, that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So she gleaned in the field until evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law, Naomi, saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. Looking back at verse 15 there, that we just read, he's now telling the reapers, hey, you know what? Just even leave more for her. Make it easy for her. So just this paving of this paving of a road, the road ahead, where now Boaz is even looking out for Ruth, that her gleanings may be fruitful. Again, it's just he's taking care of her, and it's just this grace, this taking care of a Gentile, of this Moabite woman, and then also with this ephah of barley, as an ephah is equivalent to a bushel. So we think in terms of bushel, and to really nail it home, bring it home, is a bushel, 1 bushel of wheat. In this case, it would be barley, but 1 bushel of wheat would equal 210 servings of spaghetti. So an ephah is a very generous amount, that she's gathering here. And so when she shows up to Naomi with this ephah, Naomi says to her, where have you gleaned today, and where do you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you. So Ruth tells Naomi with whom she had worked, and says, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. Then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead. And Naomi said to her, this man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives. The relation and relatives, the word in Hebrew here is goel. And goel, that's where that redeemer comes from. Goel is this relative redeemer. So Ruth the Moabitess said, he also said to me, you shall stay close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest. And Naomi says to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with these young women, and that people do not meet you in any other field. So she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law. And we're going to see as we get into chapter 3, as Naomi starts giving Ruth instructions. So Naomi, Naomi is an older Jewish woman who obviously is very familiar with the customs, and even is starting to sense, like, whoa, wait a minute. She's starting to sense some of what God is unfolding here, and as such, in chapter 3, is going to begin giving Ruth these instructions of how to interact with Boaz. Just kind of sweet and kind of cool, that Naomi is seeing this, and then even now, in this divine unfolding, is going to be giving Ruth instructions. And we see that where she says, then Naomi, her mother-in-law, says to her, my daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now Boaz, whose young women you are with, is he not a relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Therefore, wash yourself and anoint yourself. Put on your best garment and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Then it shall be when he lies down that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in and cover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. And Ruth says to Naomi, and she says to her, all that you say to me, I will do. So she goes down to the threshing floor, did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she came softly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. And now it happened at midnight that the man was startled, and turned himself, and there a woman was lying at his feet, and he says to her, who are you? So she answered, I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. All right, we're going to continue this in the next video. See you there.